Hey everyone, just before we get to this episode, do you want to start, grow, or monetize your podcast but feel stuck or overwhelmed? Join the Podcast Lab, a monthly membership with live training, templates, support, and a community to help you launch and grow with confidence. Get clarity, stay consistent, and finally build the podcast you've been dreaming of. Join the Podcast Lab today and take your next bold step. The link is in the description to join. Now, let's get into this episode.
We can listen to our first episode. We can listen to the first one from last year, our first interview, and we can hear the growth as we go.
Yeah.
So we can hear the upgrades in equipment or the upgrades in software, but we can also hear ourselves getting more comfortable. We can hear ourselves being able to play off of each other and continue with the conversation. So just to be able to experience that growth and to have evidence of that growth has been good.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to this episode of I Made a Podcast. My name is Chris Creary. Thank you for tuning in today. This is going to be a really fun conversation. This is the first time on the podcast that I had podcasters who did a relationship podcast, and this was a really fun conversation that I had with Margaret and Bryon. Their podcast is called Beyond I Do. So let's get into this conversation right now. You're going to learn a lot about their journey and how they started, why they started, and some of the things that they learned along the way. So let's get into the conversation right now. Guys, how are you today?
We're good. We're good. We're excited to be here with you.
Yes, sir.
All right, wonderful. So we're going to talk about your podcast. It's a podcast about marriage, and it's called Beyond I Do. So can you tell us a little bit about it? Maybe introduce it for yourselves. Let everybody know a little bit about you guys, for the people who are hearing about you for the first time, and just tell us a little bit about your podcast.
All right. Well, the idea for the podcast came about, Margaret and I were talking about, doing something. Well, we actually talked about just doing some stuff on social media, just creating a social media presence. That was around after the pandemic, TikTok kind of picked up. So I was like, I want to do something, but I don't want to do nothing stupid. I don't want to talk about people in a negative way. I want to do something meaningful. Mm-hmm. So we were sitting up there just kind of thinking about it. And I was watching Steve Harvey's TV show when it was on. And they had these group of people that had been married, different years. And the longest couple had been married over 50 years. So they said, they asked the typical question, how did you make it 50 years? And they had the typical, communication. So I was like, well, what is communication? Like, and then the light bulb hit in my head. Like, man, we could talk about how we made it, 27 years, 25 at the time. Mm-hmm. So
actually, it was 23 at the time.
Okay.
So actually, I approached her about it, and she's an introvert. So I was like, I don't know if she would want to do that. And I was shocked. She was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay. So she was like, the first part we had to conquer. It took us a year to actually get started. Wow. Because she was like, I don't like the way my voice sounds. So we were sitting up watching TV one night, and I was on my iPad. I said, look, we just need to record ourselves to get used to hearing us. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we did a recording, just a little light recording, like I'm saying silly stuff, making her laugh. And then probably about a year later, a couple of months later, we were on a cruise and brought, lights with us, everything with us.
When he approached me and I said, sure, let's do it. In true Margaret fashion, I went on Amazon. I ordered microphones, ring lights. I ordered all this stuff. We sat down and we planned out what it would be like and all this other stuff. And then is when I said, I don't like to hear my voice. So,
after you done spent all that money. Yeah?
Right. All of that equipment sat there looking at us, looking at it.
We're going to do something.
Yeah. And so
we were on the cruise. Mm-hmm. We had brought stuff with us, brought the lights. I always carry my iPad with me anyway. Mm-hmm. So I said, let's just record, So we actually recorded, just talking about us and how we got started. And with our marriage and everything. So we watched it. I was like, still took us another 6 months to actually record. And every year, about the end of the year, I get vacation from my job. So And she teaches school, so she's out on Christmas break. So we were in Las Vegas, and I set the iPad up. Didn't know what I was doing. I said, well, I've been fooling around with this GarageBand, so I know we can record on it. You know what I'm saying? So we watched a tutorial video, and they showed us how to do it. So I just hit record, and we started talking. And that became our first episode, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
2 years to get to it.
Yeah, that's the math I was doing in my head, right? Because most people who start a podcast, they have this this time frame that passes from when they have the idea, and then Mr. Procrastination shows up, right? And it just takes a little while longer for the idea actually to turn into something, right? So I was just trying to count the time that it took. So about 2 years from when you guys had the idea to actually when you recorded and released the first episode. That's right. Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And you know what? This is the first time that I actually have a husband and wife couple together on the podcast. So we're breaking barriers today on I Made a Podcast. Yeah, I love the way this is going. Okay, cool. So now if you could tell me, what would you say is the best episode that you guys ever done so far?
For me, we've had 2 episodes with our adult children.
Yes.
Okay.
One was last season. That was the first time we had them on. And the other was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And with those episodes with the kids, it's almost like you get to see your finished product.
Yeah.
And we
hear what they think.
Right. You get a sense of what you've poured into them. And so I've enjoyed those. Yeah. And just hearing their take on, we usually pick current event topics to address when they join us. And so that has been, those have been my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. That's typically my favorite. As far as, we've had different guests on. One of our first episode from last year was sex
and intimacy.
It's an intimacy coach.
She was our very first guest.
Very first guest, and that was fun because she talked about intimacy within couples and things like that. That was we enjoyed that, and then she had a little part where she showed us some of the toys that they use. She has this little shop and everything in her hometown. It was like, man, that was amazing.
All right, so that episode's for adults, right? No.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Adults and married grown folks only.
Right.
And I will say that
I think there's a disclaimer for it.
Okay.
So it's because I mean, you might hear a bad word here or there,
Right.
This is adult content, definitely.
Adult content, for sure, absolutely. And one of the things that I like about your podcast, and this is funny, but so you guys are not marriage counselors,
right?
No.
But you make that disclaimer at the beginning of every single episode, right?
Yep.
So basically, your podcast, you guys, the core of the information that you're sharing is based on your experiences or the experience of the guests that you're bringing in, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we're not counselors. However, we are coaches, and we have started to incorporate some of the tools in our newer episodes, some of the things that we learned going through that.
That's one of the ventures that we picked up, being encouraged by our guests, people like yourselves. We become certified marriage coaches.
Very
coaches.
good. Very nice. Yeah. It almost works. I think it would almost work hand in hand though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Become a coach as well, right? Yeah.
You get family. People come to you for advice anyway. And it's like, well, I've given.
Maybe there is some value to it.
There you go. Right.
So we do have that disclaimer there because we're not therapists, but throughout this journey, we have just our opportunities have opened to different things. So that was one of the things that we did.
So you mentioned that you bring your kids on every now and then to the episodes. I'm curious to hear, like, what were some of the comments or their reactions when you started the podcast? Because it's only 2 years old, so I'm assuming that they had, could form their own opinion, about your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So what did they say when they found out that, hey, my parents are podcasters? What would they say?
So our son, and he's 27, so these are adult kids.
Yeah.
Our son, he had a couple of podcasts already. He had a YouTube channel. And so for him, and just because he's him, he didn't say much in the beginning, but with each progression, he's like, that's cool. Or when we get new equipment and he sees it, he says, in fact, the other day he said, I'm proud of y'all and how y'all are, investing in this, and I'm proud of you. Our daughter, who is 23, when we started, she was so excited and she started listening to the episodes, and then she got to one and she said, y'all started talking about sex, and she said,
yeah.
But they have been very supportive, and in those episodes with them, you see, like, we did something right because they enjoy being around us and we enjoy being around them, especially at this stage in life. Like I said, it's where you can see what you put in mixed with what they're learning and their experiences.
It's nothing like hearing some of the words that you've said to them, like when they were younger, coming back out, and it's like,
oh man,
did listen.
Oh man, I have a son and he's 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's still a good age.
I'm sowing seeds. I'm sowing seeds, right? So I'm hoping that when he turns, 16, 17, 20, up in that age, I'll start to hear some of those things back that I spoke to him when I'm still sowing seeds. But yeah, I'm hoping that, when he gets older, I get that testimony too, that, I start to hear myself back.
He's going to act like he's not paying 1 ounce of attention.
Yeah. Okay, so that's normal. Okay, good.
That's absolutely normal. So when they were preteen, early teen years, they asked about social media accounts. And we said, you can have them, but they were under our email addresses. So everything they posted, every thing they shared, we would get a notification.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking and they're posting, I had grilled cheese for lunch, and I'll have a picture of the sandwich, or just random craziness. And I'm like, nobody cares what you have for lunch.
Yep.
And then fast forward 15 years and we're out to dinner, and I'm like, stop, let me get a picture, smile.
Right. The table's turned, eh?
Right. And they have,
is this on social media?
Hey, and they have pointed out to us, remember when you said, so it's been neat to have them a part of this also.
Yeah.
We also have 2 other children, 2 adopted children. And our oldest, she sometimes we'll do live streams and we look and she's there. And so it's to see the support of our kids. Like I said, we look at them and we're thinking, okay, we did something right, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I mean, I think that the fact that you guys have been married for 27 years now, and then so 4 children in total, right?
Yes.
That is like a huge blessing, but it's also, a proof that you guys are doing something right, and why people should listen to your podcast to see if they can pick up on any nuggets, to apply into their own marriage, right? Because it's not easy, right?
Right.
I told you before, it's only been 10 years for myself and my wife, right? And yeah, lots of growth in those 10 years, lots of learning for both of us. And I'm thinking, man, 25, 27 years, can you imagine? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it, but it's hard.
Right. And we were 22 and 23 when we got married. Mm-hmm. And we got married on the 13th of December, and our son was born on the 20th of December.
Yep.
So we went from January of 97 being, we were best friends for years, and we started dating in January of 97, and we went from carefree, dreaming of one day when
married and have kids.
Right.
Literally like a year later.
Right.
We're still in that age where we were trying to figure out life and stuff like that.
Right.
And,
And then we had to start figuring it out as we go.
Yeah. Well, that's a story. I think that's a story of life, but it's also kind of the story of podcasting as well. Like we talked about at the beginning, right? When you start a podcast, you might have things together, right? You might go onto Amazon and get all the things you think you need and right away,
right.
But then as you start doing it, you work with what you got, you learn, and then you grow, and maybe some things that you got off Amazon you don't need no more. And
right.
I got a box right now, stuff that I've wasted money on, but I mean, that's
all right. It's growth.
Part of the process.
It's growth, right?
And we can listen to our first episode. We can listen to the first one from last year, our first interview, and we can hear the growth as we go.
Yeah.
So we can hear the upgrades in equipment or the upgrades in software, but we can also hear ourselves getting more comfortable. We can hear ourselves being able to, play off of each other and continue with the conversation. So just to be able to experience that growth and to have evidence of that growth has been good.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you guys are doing it together. Because like speaking from my own experience, my wife is not a podcaster, but her voice is so smooth. So she does, like, I have clients who I produce their podcasts, and she does voiceovers for me, like for some of my clients. So it's nice to work with her to do that. Like, and other stuff that we do as well, like when we're doing it together, like if there's a project that we're working on or whatever, when we're working together, it's actually good that, we can do that together, build a relationship, and kind of, feed off each other's energy. And I think that doing stuff like that together with your husband or with your wife, right, is really, really good for the relationship in general. Now, let me ask how you do this, though, because 4 kids, right, and yourself, how do you guys manage to find time to do a podcast as well? Like, how do you guys balance it, right? Because I know for me, right, I'm in my studio right now, so I'm not in my house, but I'm in my studio because my wife and my son are at home, and they're like a marching band when they're in the house, right? So, I can't be podcasting when they're in the house, right? Because they'll be all up in the background making noise and everything. So I got to get out of the house, right? But how do you guys do it? How did you manage to, organize your schedules and balance the time with everybody else in and out of the house? How'd you do it? Ready to launch your podcast the right way? If you ever dreamed about starting your own podcast but don't know where to begin, this is your moment. I've been podcasting for years and helping others to do the same. Now I'm bringing everything that I've learned into a brand new live 6-week podcasting class. Each week I'll walk you through the exact steps to go from idea to launch. Even if you're on a tight budget or a short time frame, you'll get no fluff, no overwhelm, just a clear roadmap to building a podcast that actually lasts. This is a live, hands-on group class, which means that you'll be able to ask me questions, get feedback, and build your show with real support from me. And you will be transformed into a podcaster by the time we finish. And because I want to keep it intimate and impactful, the spots are very limited. So if you're serious about starting your podcast and want to do it right, join the waitlist through the link in the description, and you'll be one of the first to know when the course opens. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. So let's turn that podcast dream into a reality. But how do you guys do it? How did you manage to, organize your schedules and balance the time with everybody else in and out of the house? How'd you do it?
So I think my son, because he's done it, that helps him be more cognizant of recording.
Yeah.
A few years back, we downsized, thinking that we were about to be empty nesters. And so the home that we downsized to, it was built in 1952. It's very charming. It's something that you would watch on HGTV where they come in and make everything over. It's very cute. Yeah. But mind you, cute, charming, that means small.
Yeah. Yes.
So our studio is our dining room and home office and all of that. And it is right next to the living room. And then the kitchen is behind us. So there are little things we have in place. If the kids come in, we come in through the back door and they come through the kitchen and they see the door is closed. They know that we're in the studio and they come in quiet. So things like that they've just been very respectful of. We live by our calendar because he works shift work. And so his shift rotates between days, nights, and his days off. So we have to live by the calendar and those time slots. And we've recently had to start, and we have to get better with scheduling our time to sit down and record. When we're planning, we leave the house because if the studio door is not closed,
they will come in.
Yes, they'll come in. They want to talk.
Well, my son, he loves to cook, so it's like,
oh, nice.
The stove is right there behind me.
Yes,
he's clacking pans and dishes and stuff,
and singing while he's doing it.
Like, find us a Starbucks or a local coffee shop somewhere to go and just kind of plan and.
Yeah. Hey, maybe you turn it into a date, right?
Right. And that's what really this whole experience has been. It's helped us reconnect in a different way.
It's different.
We kind of naturally fell into different roles. So like he said, he had been playing around with GarageBand, and so he does the editing for our episodes. And I love technology. I love the internet. I love the tools and things that are available to make and create. And so I do the social media, I do the images and things like that. And we just kind of naturally fell into it. Like he said, I'm a teacher, so I'm always doing something on the laptop. And so I type out scripts and things like that. And it's helped us see each other differently. I know that he's talented when it comes to music, and he had been playing around with GarageBand, producing music and creating tracks and things. But when our podcast opening starts to play, and I know that that's something that he's created, it just, there's a different level of appreciation. And we've also had to learn to almost switch those roles from, okay, we're co-host right now. So we have to, put on thick skin if I had say this might need a little tweaking, or he tells me this, so that we don't overthink things or overanalyze, so that I don't overthink or overanalyze things.
Like, I need to change this. And I'm like, this is too much. And I don't want it to sound like we're reading off the paper. And I'm like, it's not us.
That's my new thing. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, like we talked about in the beginning, and I meant to ask this before, but I forgot. I think when the internet cut out here, I lost my train of thought. But we talked about at the beginning how you didn't release the first episode because you didn't like the sound of your voice. How did you get over that?
So initially, I just would post. I wouldn't listen to it. Let's see, we posted the first time in January, and by June, when we were out of school, I finally sat down and I binged all of our episodes at that point, and I made myself listen to me. And so it's just taken time to get used to it.
There's always a joke because we'll see like a video clip, like a log on YouTube or a log on Facebook, and we'll see us come across the screen and be like, "There, them people go again." They think they like.
I force myself to. Yeah, that's
know everything.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. I think a lot of, that's not uncommon for people who are just getting into podcasting. Because, you know what? I had the same thing where I was listening to my voice and I'm like, man, is that's how I sound?
Right.
Oh, and I didn't like to listen to myself, but you know what? It's the only voice that I have, right? So
right.
I'm not going to change it for nobody. And hey, it is what it is.
I'll tell you one thing that helped is when we have been interviewed by others, listening to those.
Yes.
To when we've been interviewed as opposed to when we're doing it. I don't know why it helps, but that has helped. So sometimes if we're going out of town, we'll pull up interviews that we've done on other podcasts. And it's easier for me to hear that for some reason.
Maybe you should dig into that a little bit, because maybe there's something that they're doing in the processing or the EQs of the audio file that makes it sound different. That maybe if you guys figure that out, maybe you guys can apply that. But take that away. Just think about that, and ask around. And if when you listen to this episode, if you like, man, Chris, oh, this sounds awesome. I sound like a like a movie star or something. If that's the case, when you listen to this episode, just reach out to me, and because I will do a little processing on the audio just to make it sound really nice and warm.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
So let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about like from a technical perspective, what kind of tools are you using? Because I know there's lots of software that Margaret, you probably are aware of, and the hardware that Bryon, you're probably aware of, right? And there's a lot of different tools that people can use to produce a podcast. Now, you've talked about GarageBand before. What are you guys using when it comes to hardware, software? What are you guys using to produce your podcast?
Still using GarageBand for as far as audio. As far as the editing, we use Adobe
Podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Upload the audio, and then you can set it where it'll come out in text form. So you can just click on the words now. But it's kind of crazy because even though you'll say one thing, sometimes it'll come up on the screen and be something totally different. So even though you're watching it, you still have to listen for the sound.
Yeah.
But that's made it a lot easier. But we've got to the point now where at first in the beginning I was like, man, I got to edit everything. I got to edit the call file. I got to I sniff a lot. I got to edit everything, and I would find myself like spending lots and lots of time. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let things naturally flow. I'll just unless we do a bunch of like long pauses. I don't edit a whole lot of that stuff out because it just sounds more natural.
Natural, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right. For the audio.
Yeah, for the audio.
And then what do you use when you do the promos? Video promos.
We use the movie player. We have an Apple product, so we use movie player.
Yeah, on the iPhones, right?
Yeah.
Just keep it simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the clips, so we record on Zoom. And so he takes that part that he needs. I take the full video and I use Opus clips to create the short form videos. And I use Canva for the images. And we use Spotify for our podcast hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of hardware, we just got new microphones.
Zoom, iPod, Pod Track E4, I think it's called.
Nice.
You have headphones also, but it was like
I don't know that we have figured out that's another thing because we very much have learned by trial and error.
Yeah.
And so we record on a laptop. And like, how do we plug all of this stuff in?
Yeah.
So we're still figuring all of that out. And then occasionally we'll use the iPad to record. So we, like I said, it's trial and error. We just keep going. Keep
learning.
Yeah.
And every time we talk to somebody, of course, everybody be like, well, I use such and such, and I use such and such. And then, she good at writing stuff down when somebody throws a tip out there. And then we'll go look it up and see, if it's beneficial for us or not.
Yeah. And I hear that comment about not knowing where else to plug in things into your laptop. So I'm here. I got every single outlet or input on my laptop is completely filled now. I ain't got nothing for nothing else.
Right.
And nothing else.
And like I said, we are in our dining room. And so when we want to dine at the table, we have to get everything away. So we try to make it so that it's a quick process to get everything out of the way.
Yeah.
But it's a learning. There's a learning curve to it, and then once you find, what it is you're looking for to achieve whatever goal, then you move on to the next part. Okay, now how do we fix this or improve this?
Cool. Let me ask you this question now. What would you say is your is or was your biggest challenge when it comes to podcasting?
Doing it.
That first one.
The first one.
That first one.
I made, and so
Go ahead.
we recorded it, and once we uploaded and put it out there, I made this long post. I say long, it's long for me, on my personal Facebook page, and I said, if you know me, none of this is in character for me. And so it was difficult to put yourself out there like that.
Yeah.
And then that imposter syndrome thing kicks in. And I don't know if we were doing different content. I don't know if maybe that part wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah.
But we've been married now for 27 years. So we know a little something, but still in the back of my head, I'm like, why are you telling these people?
Yeah.
Who do you think you
People don't care about
you are?
Your little marriage.
Right. So just doing it, just putting yourself out there for people to critique or.
Yeah.
Now that was difficult. That was probably the most difficult. But the second most difficult for me was the first time we were guests on somebody else's podcast.
Okay.
Because when you reaching out to people and they finally say, "All right, I'll have you on," and then it's like, what the heck they gonna ask me? What kind of questions are they gonna ask me? Am I gonna be able to answer that question right? I don't want to I have a brain fart and be like, But that was kind of like, but once we did it, we had so much fun. And it's like every time we do it, it's not even a second thought anymore. It's like,
I have a secondary one also is the time. Like you said, we both work full time. And my job is not one that once I'm off, I'm done. Yeah. There's time outside of my work hours that I'm going to have to work. So just the time. And now, if you've done the math, I'm old. my energy level and my drive and desire, none of that matches anymore. The desire is way up here. The energy level is down here. So
I'm going to share with you a little fun fact. And this is true. Right. Now, I worked last night and got off this morning. And so when I got off this morning, like I'm on vacation next week. So I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and trim my head up, cut my hair up, and everything, got my trim up and everything. So by the time I got into bed, it was late. Couldn't sleep because my mind was like, I could get up and do this. I could get up and do that. But then I'm like, just lay down, food, lay down. So didn't get much sleep today. So before about 3 hours ago now, I had to go pick some medicine up. So I was like, I'm going to get a 5-hour yawning on this podcast. And she was like, well, I'll trade the other half.
So that's been a secondary thing. Yeah. And because we love this, we love doing this, it's frustrating. A lot of people can say that going to work is not their favorite thing. Now, I love the kids that I work with. I love what I do. But going to work, I mean, if we could stay home and get paid, who wouldn't do that?
Exactly.
So, but I'm thankful to have the job that I have.
Right.
But this gives me life in a different way.
Right. It feeds you.
Right. And so it really, the kid waking up in the morning, I don't want to go. That's how I feel because this work thing gets in the way of my real life. And that's what I say. This gets in the way of my real life. So that's been a challenge is just trying to balance everything and finding the energy because the drive and motivation, it's there.
Right.
Wonderful thing about it is a lot of times it's people like you, Chris, that bring out that energy in us also.
Right.
Because a lot of times, it might be an hour before I have to go to work. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, we'll set up a meeting. Try to make it short, try to do this. And then it's like, I get into it. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, dang, I wish I had longer. What I mean?
Exactly.
Right. Get into a good conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So, you just want to keep going. Yeah. I find that like if I connect with good people, like when I'm doing an interview like this, I could talk to them all day.
Exactly.
Like, you lose track of time,
Yeah.
So,
right.
But I really hear, and actually that comment that you made about the challenge about finding the energy, or the time, that to put into it is a real one. But one of the things that you mentioned earlier about how you guys schedule it and your calendar, I think that's a really good solution, but it's just hard to stick to sometimes, right? It's just hard, when you even if you schedule it on your calendar that, between 7 to 8 p.m. tonight, we're going to be recording, especially if you lay down for a little bit, man. Oh, the blanket just kind of holds you, man.
And I'm here to tell you that adult ADD is real.
Oh, yeah.
And both of us know.
Yeah.
Both of us know.
Oh, yeah.
And so that also, we're going to work for an hour can turn into, baby, look at this. Look at this video of this car. Look at this.
Yeah. You call it research.
Research. Exactly. Oh, man. This is awesome. And like I said just now, I could talk to you guys for hours because this has been so awesome. Let's wrap this up, though, because I got to go to bed soon.
Same.
Yeah.
Let's do this. What's your one key takeaway for all the podcasters out there? One thing that you can share from your experience that can help them get to the next level?
Just do it. Whatever you have planned, whatever your fears are, whatever doubts that you have, just make a plan and just do it, execute it. You can always come back and change stuff after the fact. Just get started. You know what I'm saying? That's my key takeaway, because it's like, we sat on this for 2 years before we executed anything. And then it's like, now I'm thinking like, man, that's 2 years more followers we could have gained, or 2 years of more experience we could have gained. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you start looking back and it's like, once you've stepped over the hill, it's like, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'll add to that, once you just do it, to keep going. Just continue, especially if it's bringing you joy.
Yeah.
Just keep going. There have been times when, like he says, he's about to go, or I get home and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I scheduled this. I get home at 3:30 and we're recording at 4, but at 3:50, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So just keep going.
Wonderful. All right, cool. So listen, Bryon, Margaret, thank you so much for being on I Made a Podcast. I'm going to put links for your podcast in the description of this episode, your podcast, your website, your socials, everything, so that people can listen to this and be connected to you guys. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being on I Made a Podcast.
Thank you.